On our journey to become great leaders, we have so much to learn in regards to mentoring the younger people. The people we were just a couple of years ago. We have Mwende Linai sharing with us her experience on mentoring high school students and primary school pupils.
I'm a consultant at the World Bank Group, doing public policy and project management in the education global practice. So I'm in a TVET project, which is called the East Africa Skills for Transformation and Regional Integration Project. And why I want to talk about that a bit is because it has been part of the journey which mentorship is a key pillar of. Through TVET, which I started doing TVET in the year 2014. When I graduated in Beihang, I joined a Chinese state-owned firm called AVIC International, which is doing education projects in Africa and in Kenya particularly. So that has been a journey of mine. I started interacting with young people through that project, and that is the foundation of my mentorship journey, because TVET, as you all know, is technical, vocational, education and training. And this is basically a youth empowerment platform. The government of Kenya has identified TVET as an enabler of the Big Four agenda, which is our national development goal under the Jubilee administration. So from the year 2014, we can go to the next slide. From the year 2014 up to 2018, when I left AVIC International, I was able to interact with 800 young people from different counties in Kenya, and these were through technical training institutions. So I was involved in the first Africa Tech Challenge, which is a CSR project. And through the CSR project, I encountered many girls, and this is now the mentorship journey. And this will give some background as to the rationale for mentorship among primary and high school. Because when I was in Africa Tech Challenge, I was the project lead at the time, and the idea was to train young people to get relevant and practical skills for the industry. I think we all can resonate with the huge unemployment rate. I'm sure when you're in China, you're wondering, how will it be for you to transition after school, especially back to Kenya? And it's a thing that we can all relate to. So in practice, when I came back to Kenya and I started interacting with young people and hearing their problems and trying to find joint solutions through AVIC and just private sector. And that enabled me to be able to understand the deep issue that the young people face in Kenya. And if you look at the slide, I'll be taking you through a background which allows us to understand the need and importance of mentorship. Now, the young people I was interacting with, because they're at tertiary education level, these are people who've transitioned from secondary school. However, there's a gap, as you know, that the level of dropout from secondary to tertiary and higher education is very huge. The Kenyan government, through the 100% transition policy, has been trying to bridge that issue. So right now, you know that primary education has been rendered free, and now secondary education too. This is public schools, of course. That has been an idea I think the government has had on how to retain young people in school, because we all know, because of our culture, sometimes young people are not given that free opportunity to access learning. And more so after high school, to transition to tertiary education, you know about our culture where we have FGM, we have early childhood marriages. They really prohibit young people from pursuing higher education. And this is why there's going to be a need for more mentors to come up and just be able to take up a role in assisting young people understand the role, or understand the pivotal role of education in their lives. So when I look at mentorship, and I can start from, why do we choose them to be mentors? we look at the first bulletin point of social programming, the way we have been socialized as a country has been wanting. I think we can discuss that. Maybe you have different views, but from my view is, even as we start maybe our childhood memories, if you remember, education is not for all, quote unquote. When you're in Nairobi, education is the thing. Everyone goes to school. But when you move to the counties and grassroots, education becomes a luxury. And that has been an issue, I think, since time immemorial, since colonial times. We even know where our colonial leaders, we see even our first president, Jomo Kenyatta, going to pursue higher education in the UK. But you know that education was not for everybody. So our history has made us or programmed us not to understand the value of education. Now, when I talk about value is, when you go abroad, and I think all of us being in China and Wanja in Australia, and even other people, you've been different places in the world, education is not necessarily the only way for you to make it in life. People have advanced through talent, entertainment, sports. But when you come home in sub-Saharan Africa, across the continent, education has been one of the only ways for people to actually make it. And I'm looking at people in the sense of somebody from a marginalized community, a vulnerable household. So that brings in social programming. There are those who've grown up not being told education is the way out of this, lifestyle, of this poverty. It's a way out of elevating ourselves from poverty, getting wealth. And basically, when I say wealth, I mean a community. How does the community grow together and be able to share prosperity and wealth? If you look at our fathers and their generation, most of them left the village to come to Nairobi, University of Nairobi, Kenyatta University, to study so they can go back home and empower their siblings. So that social programming, how we've been programmed to know that education is either a value or not valuable, brings in a key need of mentorship. Now, when you go to Northeastern communities, we still struggle with young girls not being able to get access to education. And that's why I say they're programming. They've been socialized to know at 13, I need to be married and start procreating. My role in life is to give birth to babies. So that programming, the only way we can break down these issues and norms is through mentorship. If you start mentoring young people at a very early stage, that's why I call it primary and high school. This is the time when young people drop out, leave this path of education to go back, get married, and even go into drug abuse and so on. Then identity around things. And I'm sorry, I've put car, but there's a lot of other things that we've grown up to want to be identified with. Now, young people who are getting out of high school, and I've been doing mentorship talks in high school, so I've gone around and I asked them, what do you aspire to be, or what do you envision after high school? Most of them will say, I just want to see myself driving a big car, living in a good house. And that's the identity young people have toward. It's not a measure of success, if I believe. And I think after this slide, I'll ask you to give comments on what I've said, because sometimes it seems monotonous when we're on these Zoom calls. But identities around things need to be broken down, guys. We're in the information era, and with social media, that identity with material things has become more heightened and advanced. Need for more mentorship. And it's a rationale why we really need to mentor the primary and high school goers to know that there's more to life than that. And then novelty. And when I say novelty, it's how we've grown up to know I have a pair of shoes that is functioning, but every other time I still want to amass more shoes. And is that because I see myself as looking better or getting social standing because of how many shoes I have, how many bags I have, how many outfits I have, if you realize that's a black man quote unquote issue. Even when you see America, how we have the Black Lives Matter protests, you see a lot of slavery output still today. Even 400 years later, we see Black people still wanting to show up to prove a point. And that's what novelty is. These things we do, we are proving points. When you want to always, keep up with the emerging trends, latest designs, designer clothes, sometimes as human beings, do we want those things? Or is it because I have to prove that I'm not poor? I'm not a Black person who's struggling. And that's why we need to mentor young people to walk away from these things. And lastly, I think colorism among Black community ties with what I've just said. This black skin and black color, even when we're in China, how it's perceived as, they say Fei has always been perceived to be empty. And because of us being Black people and that color always kind of making us be at the bottom of the pyramid. And this weighs down on our young people, more so in high schools, where sometimes during funkies, the light-skinned will always have an upper hand than the dark-skinned, if you know what I mean. So we'll engage more. And those things need to be mentored, because you see more and more Black, dark-skinned youth bleaching is because of low self-esteem. I mean, we're not here to judge and we're not here to say what is wrong or right, but I'm saying some of these things have been embedded because they lack mentors to tell them you're beautiful and your value does not lie in the color of your skin. So those are the things they give a background on mentorship. And lastly, I think values, what grounds our young people, especially because we're in the internet of things. Young people are seeing so much because of internet. And how can we help them to distill and sieve, filter out what is going to harm them and what will not harm them? Can you imagine when we were growing up, we did not have all these forms of social media. I think we had Facebook when I was in China. But imagine growing up with Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, everything. It really brings out young people who are confused, and we need them to be mentored. So I wanted to talk to you all as upcoming mentors. Some of you have served as mentors. We need to have clear tools for mentorship, especially now with the backdrop that I've given. You're dealing with young people who are confused. You're dealing with people with low self-esteem. You're dealing with people whose identity lies in wearing a suit and becoming a CEO. So what are you able to do to impact them? Because at the end of the day, as a mentor, I think we all want to create impact. Now, through my mentorship journey, I've highlighted some of the schools that gave me some of these tools. Early this year, I went to Moa Girls High School, which is in Machakos County. And I noticed sometimes you're able to help a young person so much by allowing them to ask questions. And I know that sounds so easy, but as mentors, sometimes you just want to give and give. Like you see how I've been talking for like 20 minutes, just preaching, Sometimes it's not the best way to mentor. Sometimes it's better to listen and allow your mentee to ask questions, because through the questions, you're able to diagnose where their issues lie. Are they coming from a broken family that has told them for many years, you can only be successful if you're a doctor? Yet I'm coming here to talk about TVET. So you see this broken telephone. So asking questions is a good tool for a mentor. In this photo, I was at Strathmore University and I was talking to them about technical training and the importance of having multi-skills in this quote-unquote fourth industrial revolution that we're in. So when I come to my second point on a tool, we need to share a lot and be relatable. Sometimes we stand on a very high pedestal and the mentees cannot relate to us. So how are you able to twist your journey? Everybody has a story. How are you able to share your story in a way that will make your mentee relate to you so that they can break down the guard and be able to share the difficulties they face in primary school, difficulties they face in high school, because they face very different challenges. So we need to keep sharing our stories. And after this, I will encourage each one of you to go on TED Talks and read on how to tell your story, because it's an art. You need to find time, especially now during coronavirus period. We have a lot of free time to journal. You need to start writing your story. And then what are the key areas that you can share in the public domain, and which areas make you relatable? So that's a key tool, storytelling. And the third part, which is coaching. And I went to Cabernet Boys High School. So I try and go to both boys and high schools, boys and girls high schools, so I can be able to relate to both gender. Remember, we want to mainstream gender activities. So whatever is happening, the boy child sometimes feels left out nowadays. Sometimes we have so much affirmative action towards the girl child. So I went to Cabernet Boys, and I remember some of their issues were more so of, as a man, they want me to lead even when I'm so young. So many young boys are being thrust into leadership roles prematurely. And let that sink in. So we don't want our boys to be vulnerable. We don't want our boys to express themselves. We dismiss their feelings, and they're very broken. Despite them getting A's, because Cabernet is a very good school, they excel in their high school, but they're very broken boys inside, because you need to be a leader, you need to be strong. So coaching becomes a key role for us as mentors. How can we coach them to become holistic individuals? A holistic individual is one who is in tune or attuned to their soft side as well as their masculine side. So coaching is a great tool for mentorship. Unemployment is on the rise. In Kenya, my last research and studies from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics show that we are at 40%. This is the working age population. The people who are meant to be working and actively earning decent incomes, 40% are unemployed. And this is increasing by the day. So already your identity with that good job is coming very shaky. Okay? Now, without that good job, then ideally that huge salary, 6-digit salary that we all aspired to have, is also not guaranteed at this point without that good job. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? And subsequently, the good house. So are we going to say because those three things are not guaranteed at this point in our lives, then we are not successful? Nope. That is the mentorship that we need to start talking. And the engagement need to center around what things are we proud of in our lives, in our journeys, that allow us to walk in a successful manner. You know, when you're walking in a successful manner, your attitude is positive. Without that job, without that big car, without that big job. And how can we change the mind shift? Because as you all know, conquering your mind is the biggest issue we have. If you can conquer your mind that having a big car, a big job, and I can see it's around the same thing, that I'm successful regardless of me taking the subway every day. So that is what our mentorship stems from. And that's what I've been doing with my not-for-profit UJANA Afrika. I go to places where people have not even had education. So how are you going to tell somebody without your education and without a degree, you're still successful? So we need to look deeper in our personalities to find ways that give us happiness and joy regardless of those those attachments. I call them attachments. Such that when I'm not driving in my car and I walk, then I'm so scared of someone seeing me walking because they'll think Lynette squeezy and gari. Are you seeing those identity issues we have?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, because mental health is at its peak, those things are not far from home. When we all look within ourselves, those are the things that would ideally make us mentally not healthy. Those identities that we've built around ourselves. So what happens if I don't get that big car and big job? And again, because I like to share and be relatable, and I'd rather do that, for the last 5-6 years, as I was working in this multinational, I had all those things that you've mentioned, right? But it reached a point I started asking myself, what if tomorrow this job is not there? Am I going to say my life now will be ruined and lose social standing because I have no job? And I battled with that for a long time before I decided to resign and pursue different career paths. So I was resigning because I was more in project management and technical, and I wanted to pursue public policy after graduating from Strathmore. But the biggest issue in my resignation did not lie in other things. It was about exactly what we're talking about. So in my next job, what if I don't earn what I've been earning? So now society will think I've become, those things. And guys, that's when I started really self-reflecting, doing mentorship classes and coaching classes to understand, if you don't break down these identities around you, you're really doomed to fail, guys. And that's what I would want to urge you. Look into other things. What is it about you, outside having a big car and a big job and a big house, that still gives you pride? What still gives you dignity at the end of the day today without that job? Those are the things you need to build on. Okay? And those are the things that you need to be proud of saying. People in Kenya are not proud of saying, oh, I'm a creative. But when you go abroad, creatives are winning, guys. If you look at Instagram, I'm sorry, I don't know. I know we have so many ladies on the platform. Skincare, ladies right now, like, always researching on skincare. Look at your favorite bloggers and influencers. I would call out a few. Jackie Aina. She talks about her skincare journey. And people, why are we all going to her page, for example? Is because she's been able to develop content that keeps me going back to that page. I don't think she had to get a degree to do that. And all I'm saying is people have started nurturing talents. There are talents which were hidden within themselves for a long time because society deemed us, if we're not in school pursuing that degree, if we're not outside there chasing that big job, then all the other things you do on the side, they're just side shows. But guess what, guys? Look at the future of work. These talents that we have since childhood, we need to start molding them, nurturing them, developing skill sets that might not necessarily be found at school. And those things give you something called dignity and purpose. And those are the things we need to build our identities around. So this is me at a camp where I mentor in a scholarship program called Logos in Nairobi Chapel. So Logos started in the year 2008, post-election violence. As you all know, we had so many IDPs, internally displaced persons. And this made so many families lose their identity because they lost homes. They've been living there for decades. You've seen so many people were uprooted from their homes. And so many children lost a chance at education. Now, Nairobi Chapel came up with a scholarship program that took in the children who are displaced, and I serve as a mentor in that school and also a sponsor. So I sponsor 3 young girls. They're not pictured here, but one of the things as a mentor that I've been doing, because our mentorship needs to have impact and outcomes, visible and tangible outputs. So without these tools on the right, it's very hard to track. You need to track your mentorship work. as you start this mentorship journey, how will you track everything that you're doing? A year ago, I was with 2 girls. A person, maybe you can tell yourself, today I'm with 4. I've added 2 boys. And what is the output of this? So we do camps, which helps us with assessment and goal setting, which is a big tool. So this is a camp we did, and most of these young people come from Kibera or just the slums in Nairobi, Mathare, Kawangware, all that. So we bring them together in a camp and we do one-on-one. So if you look at this group of 8, I would ideally sit with them in a circle, and then we start assessing. How has been your school? How has been the term? Where are you in terms of grades? Are you where you want to be? First of all, we need to have people be free. Maybe for them, moving from a D to a C is such a big victory. But for us as society, you want it to be automatically an A. And as a mentor, you need to remember, you need everyone to be self-paced. So we assess them in the sense that, have you reached your goal in life? But also we had mutual goals. Maybe as a mentor and mentee, we had set out our goals, the goal setting together. Where are we with those goals? And then now we have technology, guys. Let's use technology in the right way. Let's leverage technology to improve communications and connectivity. You can mentor from China, you can mentor from Australia, and you can mentor to any part of this world. Because now we have channels that can improve communications. Mentorship is largely on communications. And most importantly, channels for feedback and input. Your mentee needs to constantly engage you. And funny thing I always say, mentorship is not replacement of their guardian. When you become a mentor, you're not replacing their mother or father or their guardian, because remember, society dictates the role of parents, and for those without, guardians. And as a mentor, we must learn to complement. Even if their guardian is not financially stable, very poor person, they still need to be respected by the mentee. So your mentee should not now look at you as their savior and now dispute, going home, ata Lynette hawezi kubali hivi. No, your mentee must always know Lynette wants you to respect your humble beginnings and your backgrounds, even if you come from a slum. I'm not here to replace your family or the people you live with. So feedback helps you know, is your mentee building wrong, rather negative attitudes, becoming a different person altogether because now they've been exposed to somebody abroad, you've been exposed to a higher lifestyle than the one that is in their home. So you need to have proper channels for feedback. You need to include their guardians so that it's a 3-way or tripartite kind of relationship. And then constant input. Which area was the mentee struggling with at the onset of your mentorship journey? Some of them are struggling with years of being in a dysfunctional family. Now you come up and say, what then can I help them? How? Maybe is it therapy? Not you being you're not a therapist. How is it you can connect them to a therapy or a support group? So those channels need to be very clearly stipulated for the mentorship to be optimal. Okay, next slide, please. So one thing we need to do is journey together. Journey together, because you cannot undo years of dysfunctional families, years of low self-esteem overnight. So you need, as a mentor, to be mentally prepared and adequately prepared with time. Time is a very critical part of mentorship. Sometimes this talking to one another really helps these mentees. So journeying together is a key activity for both mentees and mentors. So now on the aspect of mentees, the person you're mentoring also needs you to assess you as a mentor. You need to be open to feedback, especially on how you are as a mentor. And these channels are two-way. So at UJANA Africa, my not-for-profit, we have a guidebook. So you give both the mentor and the mentee a guidebook for active. It's a two-way relationship, basically. So you need to be open to feedback as the mentee is also open to feedback.
Thank you so much, Lynette, for sharing with us. Like, you have a lot of experience, and I believe all of these points will play a major role as we move towards the journey of being mentors. And I'm sure every one of us had something to learn from this.